What is going on today, guys? Welcome to a brand new video about SnowRunner, where we are going to be diving deep into the new trailer that just dropped. Now, this is a really long trailer. There's a lot to unpack, so make sure you stay tuned and follow along through the video because there's a lot of details in this one. Now, as the trailer kicks off, we see a couple of views that we're pretty familiar with. We see looking out over the snowy environments, but right after it kicks off, we see a Chevy 1500 sliding sideways and bouncing off a rock, showing the rock flying up in the air. And that's already different than things that we're used to in the past, because normally vehicles in this game don't really have a characteristic of sliding sideways like that. I mean, they do, but when they do, it's pretty much like completely out of control and you're going super fast. That looks a lot more controlled. So now we get a little bit more of a closer look at the HUD, and you can get a little bit of a look at the shift pattern. You can get a little bit more of a look of what multiplayer is going to look like. And of course, you get a look at the ice you'll be able to drive across. Now, in that shot there, you could see the immense amount of detail that they've put into these interiors, because they really are genuinely insane. Water crossings they mentioned in the trailer are always going to be treacherous, especially if the water is deep, and that's something that we're used to from Spin Tires and MudRunner. However, I think that there's going to be a little bit of an increase in difficulty here in SnowRunner. Now, something to be noted is the fact that the winch it looks to be just about the same as what we're used to. Now, contract-wise, these are obviously jobs that you can do throughout the world to earn money, but the more you do, the harder they'll become. Now, they're not all difficult, they say, and they also said that most of them can be completed at your own pace. Now, when they say most of them, that's an interesting way to word it, because that makes me think that there are some contracts that are timed. Now, and look at that thing, by the way. Thing is like crazy lifted with these huge like bogger tires on it. We could see a crate being picked up with a crane. We could see cars being loaded onto a flatbed trailer. Bridge building and environmental modifications are a aspect of gameplay now. There's a lot going on within the environment that is based around the contracts. We can see a van being rescued with a crane. We can see a road being cleared. They've also said that rocks can be cleared out of a pathway to open up new areas of the map. And then they also mentioned that these mega-sized trailer loads are a new feature to the series entirely, and are some of the biggest trailers and biggest loads you have ever been able to haul in this game. Now, or really in this franchise. Now, customization-wise, we've already really done a deep look into customization, but that truck there, we can see it rescuing another truck from the river, and I think they've really put a big emphasis on rescue missions and contracts, because they've seen the popularity of how many people, by the way, that cat looks sick, and look at that interior, absolutely insane. But they've seen the popularity of rescue missions in general, and just how many people have set up their own rescue mission scenarios outside of the context of logging and what they do within the main game. So I think that's why there's going to be a pretty heavy focus on rescue missions in SnowRunner. Now, I actually think that the flatbed attachment in that previous shot looks really, really good. And also, diving deeper into the multiplayer, I think the customization is going to play into the multiplayer so well, because no two trucks are ever going to be exactly the same. I mean, unless it's specifically planned out that way, no two trucks are ever going to end up exactly the same, and it's going to give you a really, really dynamic feel with a lot of replayability, because nobody's ever going to be in the same truck. But now that we've gone through the trailer, let's go ahead and dive into it and see what we can figure out. Now, let's begin with something simple. That little Chevy drift at the beginning. I mean, obviously, it's not a very big part of the game itself, but it does look like they've made the mud physics a little bit more slick, because he didn't look like he came into that turn with all that much speed, but as you can see, the back end came right out, and he bounced off the rock and shot a rock in the air. So I think we can definitely expect to see maybe a little bit slicker mud moving forward. Of course, not to spend too much time on the Chevy, we're moving ahead to a look at one of the 8x8s hauling one of the mega loads that they talked about and mentioned in the trailer itself. Now, this thing, I mean, it's obviously a little bit of an awkward camera angle, but those tires have to be at least 50-something inches tall, maybe more. And carrying around these massive loads with the 8x8s, you're going to be wrestling with some of the largest vehicles you have ever driven in a game in this entire series. Now, here we get a much closer look at the HUD, and there's actually a lot to look at here, like a genuinely large amount of things to look at here. For example, the gear selector is a little bit different in terms of look. It's a little bit cleaner now. It's based off of not necessarily an H pattern, but it's based off of auto being in the center, reverse being down, neutral being to the right, which is very interesting. That kind of caught me off guard a little bit because I was like, what exactly are you going to be using neutral for if you're driving around in auto mode all the time? Now, neutral is obviously going to be very useful for people that want to play in full, proper, dedicated manual mode, but I was really interested to see what kind of functionality they would implement with having neutral being over to the right. Now, sticking with the gameplay shots, here we are obviously seeing a shot from multiplayer, but again, if you look down at the bottom right corner of the screen at the gear selector, there's a lot more options available, whereas with the Hummer, what would have been forward and up was grayed out. Here, it's high, and then you can also see low has more selectable ranges, so you have low in the middle, but you also have what I'm only assuming to be the new version of low 1, 2, and 3. So you have a couple more ranges to choose from in terms of the low range part of the gearbox. Now, it looks here like we have a crane truck, a flatbed, as well as a garage slash repair slash support truck. And I think this is probably the typical multiplayer lineup you're going to see if you're trying to objectively complete a map. And also keep in mind that there will be more of an in-depth look at the map and, well, multiple maps and specific contracts later in the video. Now, they've been making a pretty big deal about the interiors in this game, and honestly, I can see why. They also show later on a more downwards angled look at the dash of one of the trucks, and I, of course, have a shot of that for you guys so you can look at it more in detail for a little bit longer, but they really have put a lot of effort into making the interiors look believable, making the interiors look like a place you would want to spend time, and making the interiors genuinely feel like they're a full-fledged part of the game. Whereas in the past, you had that sort of awkward dash overlay that looked very strange. Here, you have a much, much cleaner look, and I think the cleaner look is going to contribute a lot to that immersion factor that you're going to get from playing in first-person view. Now, they did say that water crossings were going to be one of the more difficult aspects of gameplay, and I'm not sure if they have actually increased the water crossing difficulty from what it previously was in Spin Tires and Mud Runner, or if it's sort of somewhere along the same lines as what it was in Mud Runner, but maybe with just slightly more turned up water currents. I think it's going to vary heavily depending on what river or what body of water you're crossing and what truck you use to cross it. I also wanted to show this shot of the overturned fuel truck because if you look over there on the right, you see a rock section that's literally begging to be attacked by a rock crawler. That is literally screaming to be, to be crawled up by a rock crawler, not even necessarily a rock bouncer, but a Jeep mod, some sort of rock crawler mod that I'm sure the community is going to make all throughout the life cycle of this game. So I've found a couple of other little spots here and there across these different maps that look like they're going to be fun to use with modded vehicles. And I think they're really thinking about it. And I think they're sneaking little hints of that in here and there across the maps. Now, the winch has been a hot topic of conversation throughout the community recently, and I can understand why, because some people really enjoy the winch as it is right now. They don't really think it needs to be changed, and other people are very adamant that the winch is one of the things that does need to be changed. And as you can see, it looks as though the disconnect logo is exactly the same, and it looks like the graphics of the winch are the same as well. Personally, I don't think the winch really needs all that much updating, and I think that if you really want the winch to be a little bit more realistic, or you want it to behave in a more limited but realistic way, that might be something that they could implement into hardcore mode later on. But I really think in terms of casual mode, the winch should definitely stay the same. Now, here's a look at the Northport map, and we're really going to be going into a lot of depth and detail here as we look throughout the map. So I've highlighted a few different areas and a few different jobs that we can really hone in on, and I think are important to hone in on. So for example, West Mountain Conquest, you see, has a stopwatch on it. So I know I speculated in my video last week that there were going to be some missions that were timed, and here we see confirmation of that in the form of West Mountain Conquest. Now, do I know what that contract actually entails? No, but I feel like we would be silly to assume that it wasn't timed, because literally the icon for it shows a stopwatch. So now we also see multiple icons for Stuck in the Mountains, and I think we have one that is probably where you end up accepting the contract, and then another one that is where you end up actually rescuing the vehicle, because over on the right side, you can also see there is a contract available to accept for a drowned Hummer. So there's a lot of vehicle recovery stuff here, and I think that's a really, really good thing. I really like the fact that they're embracing that. And there's also, as you can see on the bottom, there's the option to skip time, presumably when the game is still in casual mode, because if you did that in hardcore mode, that would kind of take away the quote-unquote hardcore factor of it, but it's nice to know that that option is still there. Moving along now to the Black River map, we have some more highlighted areas. For example, we have the wooden bridge building missions, and there's a lot of different icons down there. Now, I'm not sure if that means you have to deliver different things to each point, or if those are all three just different points where you can accept the same mission. I'm assuming that you have to deliver different materials to each point, but that is currently only an assumption. Now, if you move to the top of the map, you can see a pump that's marked, which I'm assuming has to do with oil-related missions, because again, that seismic vibrator attachment is really, really showing up a lot in terms of being something that you can add to a lot of trucks, and so I'm assuming oil has a lot to do with a lot of these missions, because again, also if you look towards the middle of the map, towards the left of the player, you can also see a drilling site. Now, above the pump, there is a stuck trailer, which I'm assuming that once you pull it out, you get to keep it. There's also a contract called drainage, which I'm not really sure what that's going to entail. It's a very generalistic way to title that contract. It could be to do with just water runoff, or just clearing an area that's washing out, and just maybe even building a drainage ditch, who knows, or it could be something to do again with oil. Now, if you look on the left, you can see contests and tasks. So in terms of the timed stopwatch that we saw on the last map, those are basically being referred to as contests, and this one has two: Pinewood Express and meteorology data. So not quite sure what meteorology data entails, but I do know that obviously it seems as though Pinewood Express would have obviously something to do with logging, and I'm not sure if that is something where you compete against the game or you compete against your friends that you're collaborating with in multiplayer. So that'll be an interesting one to see how that plays out as we move forward. In the tasks area, we have missing machinery, drowned highway truck, local entertainment, which I have no idea what that's for, the place beyond the spruces, rock slide, stuck trailer, drowned scout truck, riverside repair, mountain bridge, which is another building mission, fallen power line pole, which we'll see more about later, and motel woes, which I have no idea what that's all about. Now, here we get a quick look at what it looks like when you discover a new objective, this one being the Great Nomad, and this one basically says the local farm might not have been the pinnacle of motorized industry, but it still wouldn't hurt to check if they might still have some salvageable vehicles there. Fix anything you find and tow it to the service station. You get 2 rewards as well as $5,050 cash, as well as 590 stars, which I'm assuming that's going to be some type of experience. Next, we see a task to find and fix up a broken down truck, which I really think that these are sort of an expansion upon how you would just find different vehicles randomly throughout the map in the old MudRunner games that just so happen to have damage. What's cool about this one is the fact that you've found an upgrade, but it's not available for your current truck. So it's basically going to be sent back to the garage it's basically going to be sent back to the garage and made available to install on other trucks that are compatible with a diff lock upgrade. Now, this shot right here gets me so excited because I've always wanted to have different elements of machinery operation included in this game, and that's exactly what they're doing here. Now, with the crane, you're able to load just about whatever you want. You're able to load vehicles, you're able to load crates, among other things as well. I mean, they haven't really shown much about lumber, but I feel like the reason for that is because they probably don't expect that we really want or need to see anything about lumber loading because we all already know how that works. But I think they really want to highlight some of the new areas that they're really kind of pushing the boundaries of in terms of machinery and operation. Also, this shot shows loading cars onto a large flatbed trailer, and presumably this is going to be another contract, but what's interesting about this one is that they teased this in one of the early gameplay trailers a while back, and it's really interesting to see how things that started out as basically things in the mod world have evolved into contracts within the game itself. Now, to touch on the note of bridge building from earlier, here they show what happens once you actually deliver the necessary amount of materials to the bridges themselves, which I'm assuming is going to be a mixture of metal beams and concrete slabs or concrete blocks, presumably. And then once you build the bridge and you've delivered the necessary amount of materials, that bridge will then become traversable and in turn make it much easier to traverse through the map. Now, some tasks are most likely going to be searching only, and this one, for example, tasks you with finding an antenna tower, and it gives you a reward of $1,400 and 80 stars, and I'm assuming that this is most likely the updated version of what you basically get from finding a watch point. Ah, yes, the crane is back. I can't wait to pull random vans out of the mud with a literal crane. I mean, it's so overkill, but yet so cool, and it's probably going to be a blast. Now, on the note of objective-based gameplay, this shot is definitely worth looking into, because if you look over on the right in what I've highlighted, you can see the contract is fallen power line pole, and it says, deliver to the fallen power line pole, you need 1 metal plank and 2 concrete blocks, which are on the trailer of the truck at hand. Now, if you look over on the left, it says Dairy Longhorn 4520, and it gives you the power to weight rating, the durability rating, and the fuel consumption rating, and it also shows what you have on your either what you have on your trailer or what you're able to haul on that particular trailer. I'm not exactly sure because it shows exactly what you have on the right, but on the left, I'm not sure if that's showing what you have on the trailer or just what the trailer is capable of carrying. That one we'll have to wait and see. Now, this one is kind of odd because the task is about clearing fallen rocks, but as you can see, the truck is a flatbed with what looks like wooden planks on the back. So how that's going to actually contribute to a rock slide, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure it would contribute in some way in real life, but it's one of those things where I'm really hoping that it's not like deliver some wooden planks and then magically the rocks get cleared. I mean, that might be what happens, but I mean, whether or not that's completely realistic is up to you guys, but it seems as though that's going to be the scenario here. Now, here we get another quick look at that mega 8x8 that we saw in the beginning of the trailer, and this thing is just so imposing, and we also see rain. Rain is going to be a very, very interesting part of this game, and that also means that weather is going to be a thing, and hopefully dynamic and changing weather. So many little things to pick out of this trailer. Now, obviously, map-to-map travel within the same region is a feature that they've been really pushing. And so as you can see here, it asks you if you want to travel to Smithville Dam. And then once you travel to Smithville Dam, it asks you if you want to travel back to Island Lake. So obviously, there are going to be a lot of different maps that you can do this with. But the fact that we know the names of at least a couple of them is a really cool little detail. Here again, we see another rescue contract known as Pluck the Stuck Truck, and then your objective is to just deliver it to the parking area. So, simple rescue contract, but the fact that you get to use that, oh my god, that monster articulated truck for this, oh my god, I'm sure that one's going to be a blast. This is probably my favorite shot from the entire trailer. The reason why is because not only am I a big fan of these Caterpillar trucks, but I'm also a massive fan of this monstrous tanker trailer. Now, we've only really seen that one equipment trailer in terms of the mega trailers until now, and I really think that this may be getting added to that mega trailers category because if you look, it's a 3-axle trailer. And of course, we can't move much further without talking about the interior view and the quality of the interior view. I mean, we see every single gauge. We see the CB radio. We see the CB radio controller as well as the microphone. We see, the glove box that's got like a lock on it. We see all of the switches on the dash, and presumably these gauges will be working as well. So the fact that we have such a deeply modeled interior view is really going to motivate a lot of people to spend more time in the interior view. Another thing that we haven't seen much of is that particular utility attachment. Really heavily detailed, and it almost looks like a fire truck in a way. Also, if you see at the bottom on the left, you'll see options for the zero cost options for saddle high and saddle low. Presumably, that's your trailer hitch. But what I'm curious about is why you would want the high versus the low in terms of the game. I mean, does one allow certain types of trailers and the other one allow other types of trailers? I'm not sure. We'll have to find out. And last but certainly not least, we're going to end with this really cool shot of a full multiplayer lobby in an environment that looks like it was almost straight out of Farming Simulator. But we see this ridiculously long truck following along with a garage truck, a crane, and the flatbed that we saw earlier. Now, if you guys enjoyed this in-depth analysis, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. Let me know what you are most excited about in SnowRunner. Let me know what your favorite thing we talked about in this video was. And if you also have anything that you would like to know about SnowRunner or are curious about, leave your questions in the comments below, and I will do my best to get in touch with the developers and see if I can get those questions answered for you. I can't answer every question, but I can at least try. So, again, hope you all enjoyed. If you did, subscribe for more, hit that bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Talk to y'all later.